Hi, I'm Adam Putnam, and I'm proud to represent Florida's 12th Congressional District. Undoubtedly, you've read or heard or seen in the last months and years some negative story about wasteful Washington spending. For the last 8 years, my office has had a set of policies and principles on how we request your hard-earned tax dollars to be used for projects in Florida and inside the 12th Congressional District. Recently, I filed legislation that would change the House rules that would apply the standards that our office has been voluntarily applying on ourselves for the last 8 years to the whole Congress. And I wanted to share them with you today. I think that they represent a step in the right direction, common sense values that allow you to see how your hard-earned dollars are being spent. First of all, we require public funds for public institutions, public funds for public purposes. So it's entirely appropriate, in my view, for individual members of Congress to advocate for the use of federal funds for transportation projects. It's public infrastructure, mass transit, light rail, building on the success of our conservation initiatives in Florida, just as some examples. When you look at the competitive grants aspect of research and development in our higher education systems, we're on the cutting edge of alternative energy and renewable fuels, on the cutting edge of better ways to detect foodborne illness, better ways to protect our nation and our homeland security practices. So it essentially says you can't be funding these earmark factories. You can't be funneling public funds to individual companies. It's for public purposes, and in some limited cases, higher education universities, be they public or private, on the research and development level. No more monuments to me. How many times have you read a story about some member of Congress funding their own Center for Good Government? We can't be using public funds to circulate back into some type of monument to a member of Congress. Public disclosure. This aspect of transparency and disclosure is the most important piece of this legislation. Members must disclose what they ask for, what they request that is being spent in their district within 24 hours. It must be posted on a website that is searchable, it is standardized, and it is uniform. Because when the whole World Wide Web can look at how Congress is spending its money, it will create the best possible disinfectant, and that's sunshine. Any local government or entity that requests federal funds ought to have skin in the game. So we require a 10% match. For any institution that asks for federal funds, they have to come up with 10% on their own. We prefer and we give extra credit to those requests that have both a local match and a private sector match. And finally, no more family payouts. The idea that spouses and brothers and in-laws and others are lobbying for federal funds from their buddy or their cousin who's a member of Congress or a senator, those days have to come to an end. It undermines the public's faith and trust in their government. So these are just some of the principles that are embedded in the legislation that I have filed that I believe will make government more accountable to you for how your tax dollars are being spent. I believe that it is a common sense and passable portion of earmark reform that will help to rebuild America's confidence in the Congress. Thank you.